my privilege today to introduce to you one of the greatest drivers of all time, a two-time Indy 500 champion, Unser Jr. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out here and spend some time with us.
You betcha.
My friend Tom has, I've always been a fan of speed. You know, cops in LA can tell you. You know, I've had my license in trouble once or twice.
Me too. The cops in Albuquerque will tell you the same about me.
I have a problem with that. And my wife says I feel like I have a record. Like I almost want to get a speeding ticket in every state I go into.
Right.
We were in Tuscany, Italy. We're driving, and then I come back and I said, wait a minute. How do I have a ticket from Italy? So I had to go to court. I'm like, are you kidding me? So speed is a fascination.
Good.
For me. So to be able to sit with somebody like you who competed at the highest level, it is a privilege and an honor. So it's good to have that. And so
Well, I love your shirt too.
Do you?
It's great. Great for the mood.
yeah,
You
great
betcha.
for the mood. I
You
wanted
betcha.
to. I figured you would like that if I put
I
this
do.
on.
I like it a
Tom
lot.
told me. Tom said, Pat, no suit and a tie. You got to dress up. Because the dress up is what you got to wear some driving clothes. So I listened to that.
Good,
But
good.
so look, I want to get right into it, and my questions are completely different than maybe the typical interviews. Like, and maybe you have done so many interviews that you've gotten all the questions. But what I'm curious about is, okay, here's Unser Jr. You have the nickname of Little Al. You won. You created your own identity. You know, you went out there and you did it as well. You won twice. Your Uncle Bobby won 3 times. Your father, the family's won total 8 times. So you're in this family here. What I want to know is, you know, what was it like being a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old son in that family? Was it all about racing? Was it always thinking about the fascination of speed? Like would Dad come home and you'd say, "I was a race, watching a video of Dad racing," and I'm curious about that part. Like, how was it for you seeing your dad racing all the time?
Pat, it was exactly like
Was
that.
it really?
Exactly
That's what I
like that.
figured.
The family's been very competitive, okay, with my Uncle Bobby and my dad being brothers, okay, and so they were the first brothers to race against each other at the Indy 500 in their history, and so they've been very competitive their whole lives, and so no matter what it was, they were competitive on it. I remember when I was 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, my Uncle Bobby had a Chevy pickup truck. My dad had a Ford pickup truck, and they live on the west side of Albuquerque, which on Central, and there's a big hill, they call it 9 Mile Hill, which starts at the Rio Grande, but they're the last mile, okay, last mile and a half of this big hill. So what they would do is, to find out who had the faster pickup truck, they'd line them up out on Central.
Wow.
And go up the hill.
The two of them.
The two of them. And so when I was very young, again, 7, 8 years old, the off season for my dad and my Uncle Bobby's the winter time, okay, because they raced in the summer. So the winter time is the off season, and so they got places up in northern New Mexico, avid snowmobilers. They got on their snowmobiles, and so who had the fastest snowmobile? I mean, it went on and on and on about racing. So it didn't matter what it was. They were racing it.
Was it speed, mainly around speed? Or was it
Mainly around-
anything they could compete around?
Honestly, Pat, anything. Okay, they'd go deer hunting, and it was who has the biggest deer, or elk, or
Who instilled
whatever.
that competitive edge in it? Was there the grandfather? Was there
I think
somebody?
it was my grandpa.
Okay.
And then I kind of think it was themselves, there's 4 brothers.
Okay.
There's Jerry, Louie, Bobby, and Al. Okay. Jerry and Louie were twins. Uncle Bobby was a year younger. And then my dad was 6 years younger than Uncle Bobby. So there was a gap there between. And so the brothers were just competitive at anything they did. They were competitive with
Were
each
the
other.
twins racing as well, or no?
Oh yeah.
So the whole family was racing.
The first Unser to get to Indianapolis was my Uncle Jerry, and he did that in 1958. In 1959, he was at the Indy 500 again during practice, He had a big accident, ended up getting burned really bad, and then about 3 months later, he passed away in the hospital with pneumonia from the burns.
Wow.
So the first Unser to get to Indianapolis actually gave his life to the Speedway.
Did that at all cause I don't know, maybe your grandmother to come in and say no more racing? That's
Actually,
gotta stop.
From what I understand, I'm not even born yet, okay? But from what I understand, my grandmother came in and told the boys, all of them, to follow your heart, to go. If you don't
That's a big deal.
don't let his death stop you from your dreams. And so, no, it didn't stop him at all. They loved racing. They wanted to go to the pinnacle in America, which is the Indy 500, and they did, and they became successful at it. Yeah.
So when was the first time you drove a car, actual car? How old were you the first time you drove a car?
Oh, when I drove a car,
I'm so curious. The answer. You have no idea how much I want to know this answer.
my dad owned a 24-hour wrecker service.
Okay.
In Albuquerque. My grandpa was Foreign Auto Repair Shop. Okay, and so across the street, he started my dad in Foreign Auto Repair Shop with a 24-hour wrecker service. So the first car I actually drove was on my dad's lap, and it was a wrecker. And I was driving the wrecker, and I remember going through a corner. Now I'm probably 4 or 5 years old, and I didn't have the strength to turn the wheel, so I would stand up on the floorboard and get on one side and pull.
So how old are you at this time?
Probably about 4, 5, 6 years old. Yeah.
4 or 5, 6 years old.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
How old
yeah.
were you when you drove on your own? Nobody there with you.
Oh gosh, I started racing go-karts when I was 9.
Got it.
And so it was a little bit before that. I asked my dad if I could get a car running in his wrecking yard, and he said, sure, yeah. And he told me, if you can get it running, you're going to get it running by yourself. If you can get it running, then you can drive it. And so I went out, and I picked out an old 49 Chevy that straight 6-cylinder that I got running. Yeah.
That's great. So I visualize this. You tell me if I'm wrong. Like, I visualize in a regular family, I'm 16 years old, I come home with my tail between my legs, I'm just kind of very disappointed, embarrassed, and I say, Mom, Dad, I'm sorry to say, I got a speeding ticket. And Mom and Dad say, you're grounded, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of visualize in your family, if you came home and you said, Dad, I got a speeding ticket, your dad saying, son, I'm so proud of you. Like, what was it when you got your first speeding ticket?
I was grounded.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Why would you be
I
grounded,
was
though?
grounded because
So what was
I wasn't obeying the rules of the street.
So wow. So it's not like recklessness, it's control, but speed. Is that not amazing? So
yeah, I was grounded.
I was curious about that. I
Yeah.
that. So then you start racing, and how much pressure was there? You know how sometimes I have a friend whose son's his father is a pastor, and not just a small pastor, very, very, very prominent pastor, and so there is that pressure of he's the only son, so are you going to also end up becoming a pastor and take the reign over and do this and do that? How much of that was there on you? As a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid, you're in school, elementary, junior, high school. How much of it was there for you where expectation was, little Al better go out there and race? Was there that, or was it more what your grandma told the kids after Jerry's death about, listen, just follow your heart? What was that connection with you?
It was a lot like what my grandmother had told my father and his brothers. My dad really did it in a way that I wanted to race, and so I had to work on my own go-kart. I had to bring home good grades in school. I had to be good. I mean, I had to follow the rules, not just in racing, but in life itself. And so He just did it in a way. And the reason why I know this is because I never felt any pressure to go out and perform. Okay, I had a really fast go-kart because my dad made it fast. Okay, now when I say I had to work on my go-kart, the only thing I was really allowed to do was keep it clean. Okay, that's what I had. That was my job. I had to clean it up after the race and that sort of stuff. But my dad really is the one that made it handle, made it go fast. He worked with me on my racing line, you know, and that sort of stuff. And so when we would actually go race, I would win. And so winning is fun, you know. And so I wanted to do it more and more and more.
Got it.
And so yeah. And so then actually it was when I went from a go-kart to a sprint car. And a sprint car it's a real automobile. It has a small block Chevy in it, 400 cubic inch. It produces between 600 and 800 horsepower, and it races on the dirt, on little ovals, quarter miles and half miles.
600 to 800.
And yeah. So I went
what's
from
top
a
speed on
go-kart.
that?
Actually, not very fast. They probably run just a little over 100, maybe, definitely no more than 130 because the tracks are so small.
Got it.
Okay, and it's on the dirt. And so that's when I went from being a kid to being a grown-up. It happened to me overnight. Okay, and so that was when I went professionally. I turned professional, and I was 16 years old. And so that put me in front of the press, okay? And so the press there in Albuquerque, they were starting to ask those questions that you just asked. Do you feel pressure to outrun your dad? And I kind of was going, no, you know, and I think my dad kind of saw it in me that I really didn't know how to answer that question. And so my dad saw it right away. And so he took me after one of the first ever press conferences I ever did. So when we got home that night, he took me aside and he goes, Al, he goes, look, I don't care what you do for a living. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. I don't care what you do. The only thing I care about is that you try your best at whatever you're going to do.
Before the interview, or he said it's after the interview?
After that interview, he saw what was going on with the pressure. And so once he said those words to me, I went, yeah, okay. He doesn't care what, I want to race. And so he doesn't care what I do as long as I try my best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try my best. That'll make my dad happy and go racing. And so I never felt any pressure from the outside world to be better or the same as my Uncle Bobby or my dad or anything like that.
Did people try to pin you against each other or no?
Oh, yeah.
Media, because media I think is going to try to do that.
Absolutely. The media tried to compare our records, and they still do today. Okay, they compare the records. And Dad,
so how do you deal with that?
Dad loves it because he's got 4 Indy wins. I've got 2.
Is he still is he competitive about it? Or
yeah.
Are you kidding me?
They asked him just a couple of years
so
ago.
Interesting to me.
Just a couple of years ago, we were doing an interview together, and one of the guys said, "So, who's the better driver?" And my dad goes, "Well, I am, of course. I've got 4 wins, and he's only got 2."
Did he laugh, or was he pretty serious?
No, he was laughing.
He was laughing.
Okay. Yeah.
That's so, because I figured media's going to try to figure out a way to do that, and sometimes that creates a certain level of division between a father-son, and how there's that father-son rift that takes place.
I know in my heart, my dad loves me more than anything in this world. My 2 sisters, you know, his children, and unfortunately my 2 sisters, they've passed on, but my dad, he absolutely loves me, and no matter what I do, he loves me at the end of the day. So
Unreal. So you know how in horse races, I'm a big Kentucky Derby fan. There's
Are
just
you?
some
Okay.
fascination. I don't know. There's
I've
some.
never been.
You
I
gotta
would
go.
love to go.
You know,
one
it's
day.
it's one of those things. The American tradition. I would say, 4th of July, you got to be in D.C. one time. It's unreal. Million people show up right in front of Lincoln Memorial. You see it, a couple $1 million of fireworks. You get emotional because it's, you know,
It's
the country.
America.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
very emotional. Another one is Derby, the last race, 150,000 people cheering, and there's some special about that, right? So, in horse races, they breed, you know, Derby champions,
That's right.
for instance, right? In baseball, I would figure, you know, a Ken Griffey Sr. son, Ken Griffey Jr.,
Yep.
you know,
absolutely.
that takes place. You know,
That's
you
what
figure
Little League is for.
that's what Little League and T. So
That's right.
in football, Archie Manning, you got, you know, the rest Peyton, and you got Eli and the younger brother. So was there any, like, what is the breeding process of racing? Like, is there a breeding? Because, like, I guess you say go-kart and he said sprint. So is that really the start off is, hey, my kid likes speed, let me have him do go-kart? So how does that start off?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is that exactly how it is with the go-kart first?
With the go-kart
Okay.
first. Absolutely. The go-kart is, it's a machine that has super quick steering. And so even if you go to these local rental go-karts and you do it, you know, there's lots of indoor places now and all that kind of stuff across the country. Yes, they're real precise. You have to be really smooth. You have to keep up the momentum in the corners and all that kind of stuff. You have to learn how to brake and throttle with both feet. Okay, and so it definitely is the perfect starter for kids. I started when I was 9. My cousin Robbie, he started when he was 7. Okay, and so yes. Today's stars: Danica Patrick, Sam Hornish, Elio Castroneves, all of today's stars definitely started in go-karts when they were younger. Now, I think because the go-karts are almost of new age. Okay, when I say new age, my generation. Okay, Michael Andretti and myself were really the first race car drivers to be bred as race car drivers. You know, because back in the 50s and 60s, race car drivers that raced at the Indy 500 were considered daredevils. They were considered crazy men.
50s.
In the 50s and 60s, that's right. And then in the 70s, you know, also, but the cars started getting safer in the 70s. You know, there was in the 50s and 60s, even in Formula One. Speaking with Emerson Fittipaldi is a really good friend of mine, and he came over to Indy and he told me about F1 because I was real curious.
He's an interesting guy.
Emerson's awesome.
Very interesting guy.
He's the youngest Formula One champion ever. You know, now today I think maybe Lewis Hamilton or something
Is he still a big smack talker?
A little bit.
Is he?
Yeah, a little
I
bit.
watched some of the videos. I mean, he's
Not
just
bad.
nonstop.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He really is a good guy.
He used to get on Senna's, you know, nerves, right? At one point, you know, they had a little bit of a.
Actually, they were extremely close friends, Emerson and Ayrton.
Behind the
Yes,
camera, behind
the
closed.
scene. That's right.
Got it.
They were really close friends.
Got it.
I mean, yeah. So anyway, back in the 70s, I mean, we were, I feel, the first generation to really be bred as, and now they've done it ever since. You know, as generations have come to today. Yeah, all your most successful race car drivers today, I would say even Lewis Hamilton started in a go-kart and raced go-karts.
Even he did.
Yeah, absolutely.
So your opinion, this is just, you know, I'm just curious to know what you're gonna say, what you're say about this. Aside from the Unser family, in your opinion, top 3 greatest drivers of all time, who would you say?
Top 3
Greatest.
Gosh, I would.
This is like a bar conversation.
Yeah,
You know, we're
yeah.
having.
I would instantly go to, okay, there's disciplines in racing.
Okay.
Okay, so when I mean by disciplines in racing, you have sprint cars, you have stock cars,
Okay.
you have rally cars, you have your single seat open wheel cars, which is the Indy 500 and Formula One. Okay, and so Formula One, I would say hands down, Ayrton and Michael Schumacher.
Hands down.
Hands down.
Now, is like one 1A, or is
would-
one ahead of the other one?
They're both just, I
Seriously?
mean, right there, yeah.
So out of 100 race, you would put them split
I would
50-50.
absolutely.
You wouldn't say 51-49, Senna over Schumacher, or Schumacher over Senna.
No.
Wow.
No, absolutely not. I mean, and really the reason why I say this is because in the 80s, when I was at Indianapolis and I'm looking at Formula One, Alain Prost was the top. You know, the professor. He was methodical. He you know, and super fast. Whether he was in a Renault or a McLaren, whatever team he went to, he was fast. Period. And then came along Ayrton, and you know, Ayrton and Elaine, they were teammates and they got it on together, and then it was Ayrton, and then Michael came along. And what I really paid attention to is when it rained. In the rain, that is the great equalizer of equipment, of the car you're driving. Okay, that's the great equalizer, because it takes away their handling.
What do you mean by the car? Meaning it's not the driver, it's the car, or it's the driver, not the car?
In the rain, it's the driver, not the car.
Got it.
In the
That's
dry, it's the car more so than the driver.
Wow.
In the dry.
And that's where
Okay.
Senna excelled.
And when it rained, you had Ayrton and Michael just go over here in a different world from the rest of the field. Absolutely. You know, so in stock cars, in NASCAR in America, Dale Sr., without a doubt. He was the best that went out there. And the reason why I say this is because I only ran one NASCAR race, okay? But I ran a lot of IROC races. And when I would come and I'd race the IROC car, it was pretty much Dale Sr. and I racing against each other. And the only place that was safe was right behind Dale, okay? If you were in front of Dale,
He's going to bump you.
then all hell's gonna break loose. Unless you could get far enough away. If you could get far enough away, then, and he couldn't reach you.
Did he have that absolute reputation that that's going to happen? If he's behind you,
He just charges. He just
Got it.
He's you know, it's that mentality of what I believe all the greats have, that, you know, I have to win. It's not I need to win, or, you know, maybe today I'm not going to because I'm not feeling well, or the car's not doing that well. It does not matter. If it's raining, if it's sunny, if the car's good, if the car's not good, I have to win. And so-
Let me ask you. So when you guys are racing with these guys, so there's one is the skill set, right? One part is the skill set. Okay, so if we have the skill set, aside from the skill set, when you met them after a race, when you met them in a meeting at an award ceremony, well, you guys are mingling together all the time, right? When you met them, who was the one personality that, I mean, you just saw him, you're like, this guy has the killer instinct. He's so focused. It's unbelievable, where no one can distract him. Whose personality and absolute focus, determination was at a complete level than everybody else. I'm not talking skill and recklessness.
right,
Maybe Senna, you know,
right.
who's the gentleman that interviewed him that said you too reckless, you get into too many accidents. What was his name? Jackie Stewart in the interview, the famous Jackie Stewart interview with Senna. But whose personality was, I am determined. When I met that guy, I looked at his eyes, I know that guy's going to win. Who was that guy?
Well, I never had the gift to meet Ayrton Senna. I never did meet him. And so I only met Michael Schumacher at a function over in Europe one evening. And so, excuse me, there was a lot of people around. And so it was a handshake, and that was about it, you know. But the one person, and I have to take, I'm going to say my Uncle Bobby, okay? He's just driven, just driven on anything, just driven. And my dad's right there too, okay? Just not as determined as my Uncle Bobby, but very determined, okay?
Even though he won one more than Bobby, Bobby was more.
Oh yeah, with anything, okay? My Uncle Bobby never let anyone do his taxes. Okay, I mean, he wants to beat the IRS no matter what. Okay, now my dad, he has somebody that's a professional that does his taxes. Yeah. Okay, but not my Uncle Bobby. He wants to bury the government. Okay, he's in competition with the federal government. Okay, but okay, you take those two out, and it would be Mario Andretti. Mario Andretti, no matter where you're at, you could be at his home, or you could be anywhere at the racetrack, at a function. Mario is focused, he's determined, he never breaks, never breaks.
So as an entrepreneur, anybody who starts a business, there is a risk of losing everything. I'm talking savings, your 401k, your house, you refinance the money out of your house, all your credit. You could be either here or you could be here and you lose 10 more years. Hypothetically, that happens a lot to entrepreneurs. For every one incredible story we hear, there's a graveyard of thousands of people that failed miserably, right? How did you deal with the risk of, here you are going 180 to 220, 230 miles an hour, and you hear stories of, you know, your uncle. You hear stories of Senna, 94. You hear stories of, how do you stay focused and not have the creative imagination of your mind take you to a place of, be careful on this turn, and then you race timid, and then something happens, you go over a bump, or how do you deal with that risk in your own mind?
It's real simple. I love what I'm doing. I just love driving cars, developing cars. Sure, I knew the risk, you know. My uncle, I've drove through. There was one year there was an accident in practice, and I was coming down the front straightaway at Indy, and I'm really trying to get my car working, and so I'm really trying. And right as I turn into turn one, I see this puff of white smoke out of my corner of my eye, which is around the corner on the racetrack. Mm-hmm. And so I get out of the throttle and I come around there. I'm still running 200, okay? And there's pieces everywhere on the track. This car, it just disintegrated, right? And so now I'm driving through, trying not to run over any pieces because I don't want to get involved in the wreck, mm-hmm. Okay? It happened to be a driver by the name of Joe V. Marcello, and he lost his life.
In that race?
In that wreck. In that wreck, he lost his life. So I drove through that, you know, and it didn't really, I didn't know that he was, that he had lost his life right then, you know. What happened with me is I ran over some pieces, and I brought it back into the pits, and we're sitting there, and you know, I told my crew, I've run over some pieces, look over the car. One of the mechanics pops up and says, we've got a hole in the radiator, because it was leaking fluid. There's a hole in the radiator, and I was mad. I just instantly went, you know, and because now I gotta get out, I gotta go back, I gotta change the radiator. It's gonna cost me time on the track because not knowing the severity of what's going on out on the racetrack. You know, they're going to take a few minutes, they're going to clean up the racetrack, and we'll be practicing again. Well, that wasn't the case for me. I had to go back to the garage and change the radiator, and you know, I'm down for an hour or so. Okay, so ended up, Joey Marcello lost his life right then, and so that evening, you know, this really played on me.
You remember this vividly?
Absolutely, you know, and going, wow, how could I be so coarse? How could I be just so no feeling, you know? But the reason why is because I want to succeed, okay? And now once I found out that he had lost his life, then, you know, the empathy really hit me, and you know, I was very, very sad because he was a very personal young man, okay, and that sort of thing. And so, but it's what we do. It's what we do, and Jovi Marcello was doing what he loved to do when he passed. And so, with that, you know, we all know, every driver that puts his helmet on and gets in the car understands the risk. And, you know, thank God that the technology of the cars have gotten so much better than they were in the 50s and 60s.
Sure.
In the 50s and 60s, 1 out of 7 died in a year, okay? So Emerson Fittipaldi, he knows this all too well. In the 60s and 70s, racing cars was extremely dangerous. And so you didn't...
1 out of 7?
1 out of 7. So if there's 20 guys or 21 guys in a race, 3 of them weren't going to see the end of that year. And so it's what we love to do. And so we understood the risks, and so you go and you do everything you can that you can prepare for to keep it safe, to not have the risks of bankruptcy, and when you're being the entrepreneur, you know, you everything that you can control, okay, and then what you can't control, you know, that's up to God, and so, you know, you got to give that to God and have faith that He has your back, and that things are gonna be for a reason. You know, that if you do fail or things don't work out the way that you wanted them to, 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, there's a reason why. And so, you know, I go back to that saying, you know, when one door closes, another one opens up. And you have to believe in that. And there may be some time between there, you know, to understand this kind of stuff, but it eventually will. And so, yeah, just...
Was faith a big part of that when you were racing? Even when you were racing?
With me, faith was a very big part.
Because faith was a big part of Senna when he talks about how he was.
Absolutely. Faith is a very big part of it.
That took the load off a little bit of the risk of what could happen? Is that kind of what it was? Because you've said it several times now. You got to kind of leave it to God. You've said that 4 times now.
You do.
So faith was a big part of it.
Big part of it.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
So okay. So here's the other part that I'm really curious, because, you know, I'll sit there and I'll talk to the young guys in our company, okay? And sometimes the leaders in the company will see me, the final product, and they'll say, oh my gosh, you know, Patrick, you know, you must be this and you must be that. And I'll say, no, let me tell you what mistakes I made. I used to party very hard. I used to do this. I used to do that. I used to do this. I think sometimes they see the final product and they think the final product has to be a perfect product, right? And they don't see the fact that we're all humans and we're all going to do certain things.
Exactly.
I mean, in the Army, I used to do things that if they showed on a video right now, it wouldn't be on the right channel on TV. So,
Me too.
Yeah, I know. So sometimes you see these things and you say,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I guess my question would be, so you have all this limelight. There's all this pressure. There's all this, you know, cover of newspaper, magazine, girls. power, attention, money, fame, accolades, all of that comes. How do you hold it together? How do you hold it together to save your sanity? How do you hold it together to not either let it get to you or not? Because too often you see it so many times that we're going through it, and it seems like every single time it's either we need to go through a fall because it's needed for us to go through it. But what would you say for yourself when you're going through it? How do you make sure that you don't let a lot of this limelight and the victories get to your head when you're going through that? Because somebody's, as an entrepreneur, someone's used to making 40 grand a year. Next thing you know, their business starts doing very well. They're making 800 a year.
Right.
So how do you still stay grounded? How do you do that?
You just said it, to remain grounded, and how you do that is not forgetting where you came from. I think that's one of the key things. Having good partners in your life, having myself. I had a wonderful wife. I have 4 beautiful children. When I was 20 years old is when my firstborn was born. Okay, and so I call him Little Al. He's Little Al to me. He's Al the third to the world, the press, and so going out and driving race cars, and then coming home and changing diapers and living life, okay, and with a baby and that sort of thing was I think real key that kept me grounded, that sort of stuff, and then for me racing, all I had to do was go to the next race, and in the first practice session I'm 10th, 12th, 15th, and it seemed like whenever I started thinking that I was really good, the very next race, I was shown that I wasn't that good, kind of thing.
So it's a constant reminder that stay humble.
Yeah.
Someone's better than you.
Remember that I raced over 300 IndyCar races, and I won 34 of them. Okay, so
1 out of 10.
it was it was a lot of hard work, and you always had to be thinking about it. It's my industry, because change happens so fast, and success happened very quickly, but failure happened even quicker. Okay, and so you really had to stay on your toes, and you really had to think about it all the time, kind of thing. And so with being an entrepreneur, I would say that you never know what's around the corner, and so same as me as a race car driver, I never knew if we were going to win the race or not. But the thing to do is go out there and do your best, and on that day, and then go to the next, and as long as you tried your best, then the best will come to you. And so, it may not happen right away. Like winning the Indy 500 for me, it was my 10th year that I won the race.
That's a very good point.
And I had cars that could do it. My second year, my rookie year, I had a really fast car that day. I just didn't have the experience to make it a winner as a driver. I ended up, I had a flat tire. We were running really good. I was probably running about 4th or 5th, something like that. And I had a right rear tire go down slowly, okay? And it almost put me in the wall. And so I came in the pits, they changed the tire. It scared the you-know-what out of me, okay? And so they changed the tire, because I didn't know...
What speed? What's your speed at that point?
We're running over 200, okay? And I did everything. I thought I was going to hit the wall, and I did everything, and it just barely missed. And I come in, change tires. It took me almost the whole race to get back up to speed again, to have the confidence in myself and the car that it's going to stick, that it's going to, And so it was a big learning thing for me because, really failure slapped me right in the face, and I didn't really know how to respond. And so, but I stayed out there and I stayed trying, and I took my steps real slow, and within a half an hour or 45 minutes of being out there, I started getting my confidence back in the car, in my team. And so, that's a large part of it, is staying grounded. Remember where you came from. Remember those times that were hard when you're successful. To remember those times that were hard, and to never let that go. And then, just to keep trying. Yeah.
Yesterday we were with a friend, Robert Greene, who wrote the book 40 Laws of Power, and he said the only way to get out of a problem is to go through it. He said Hannibal said that one time. So that kind of reminds me of that, because you're saying you're driving and you have some fears whether the tire's going to stick or not. You still got to get through it, and then 30 minutes later the confidence was back up.
It didn't come right away.
That's the thing. Yeah. Let me ask you this. You know how sometimes behind closed doors, when somebody ends up becoming a big achiever, there is a chip on the shoulder that I have to prove this person wrong, or there is somebody that believes in me, right? Or there's both. We got the chip and we got somebody who believes. How was the conversation with you and your father or your Uncle Bobby? How was the conversations coming up the ranks? Like when you're coming up, was it more, Al, you can do this. Al, you can win the Indy. Al, you're doing a good job. Al, you're getting better. Al, try to do this. Al, think about doing this part. Al, was it a lot of feedback constantly being given to you? Was it somebody injecting belief in you? How was that part behind closed doors, behind the camera?
Pat, I was really lucky, gifted, because I had my Uncle Bobby, who was all about, you should have done this better, you should have done that better.
Sounds like he would be
what
like
are
that.
you doing? You need to do this, and you need to do that. And then I had my father, who was going, you did good. You did good. You need to maybe try this, maybe, but it's okay. It's you did a great job.
Wow.
We're gonna just go to the next race, and you'll learn some more, and that sort of thing. So I had two opposites. That was, the one just driving you and just you have to do this. And on my dad, it was, why don't you try this and see if that works out for you?
Is that not amazing? So you had the best of both worlds. So the feedback and the criticism.
And
you hear that so much. You hear some way Brett Favre was playing. Who was Green Bay's coach when he was playing for them? It was Holmgren. And then they would say they had a problem together. But he had the quarterback coach who ended up becoming, is it Mariucci? Who was the one that was a QB coach? And he would have somebody that Mariucci was like your father, and Mike was like your uncle, and it made Brett Favre, who he became as that. And you hear that a lot with a lot of places. It's almost like a winning formula.
It is.
You need somebody that's saying.
It was for me.
Is that
it was
not
for
interesting?
Me because honestly, my Uncle Bobby, his whole mindset was the cars weren't very reliable in their careers. Okay, in my dad's and my uncle's generation, the cars they were lucky if they went 500 miles, okay, for mechanical, okay. So Uncle Bobby's mindset was, if the car's gonna break, I'm gonna be leading the race. So my Uncle Bobby outqualified my dad a lot. He's in the record books as being on the front row at Indy more times than anybody. My Uncle Bobby wants to lead that first lap. He wants to lead from the first lap to the last. My father, on the other hand, was the kind of person that said, I want to work my way into leading the last lap, because that's the lap that you want to lead, because that's the winner of the race. And so I don't have to be out there leading. Okay, now the whole curve in this whole situation at the Indy 500, my dad has led more laps at the Indy 500 than anyone in history.
Are you kidding me?
No, and number 2 is Ralph De Palma, who raced in the 20s. Okay, so my dad, he drilled in me. Okay, you only lead the race if it's easy. If it's easy to lead the race, then lead it. You know, but don't risk everything to lead the race. And my Uncle Bobby would risk everything to lead the race.
So would it be like a Senna and Prost? It seems
Yeah,
like it.
yeah, a lot of that.
Seems a lot of
that.
similarity there with
A
the
lot
both
of
personalities.
that. Yeah, my Uncle Bobby, I'm telling you, he's driven on no matter what he does, no matter what it is.
So okay. So here's the last thing, and then. So okay, you know, it doesn't matter what world we're in, basketball, football, sports, a pastor running a 50,000 member church, a great CEO like Jeff Bezos building an incredible conglomerate, somebody like you winning the Indy 500 twice at the highest level, one of the greatest race car drivers of all time. When you see all of it, if you were to put things into 3 things, okay, there's 50 different things. It's an unfair question sometimes because there's so many different moving parts to getting to the highest level. I'm not talking about just make it into the arena. Mm-hmm. So the 80-20 rule, 80% of the go-kart drivers will never make it to the sprint. So the sprint 80%, right. So don't make it to the next level. And then, out of the 80% that make it to the highest level, never ever even win a race. The 20% that do, only 20% win an Indy. So, you've gone into the 20 of the 20 of the 20 of the 20 of the 20. You're in this small little, very minimal category of people that have won it multiple times. We're not talking a lot of people. So there's, 113 billion people born. Only a handful of people have won it multiple times in Indy 500. You're sitting right here. Okay. So 3 things to make it at the highest level in any endeavor. What would you say those 3 things are?
The first thing I would say is faith. Believing in a higher power that controls what you can't control. I would say that's number 1. Number 2 would be never forget where you came from, because we've all been little boys that have gotten in trouble, and have the parents come to you and say, did you do this? And it was bad. And of course, well, I lied. And so then I got in more trouble because I lied. But never forget where you came from. And then, honestly, to have the confidence in yourself that you can go out and you can become whatever you want to be. And so, with that is being grounded, having a firm foundation. And that goes back to faith and so on, and good partnerships, a wonderful wife, whether it be male or female, doesn't matter, your life partner that you both are pulling in the same direction, I think is they don't give that enough credit, because being alone is not the way. So
interesting. So faith was 1.
Faith is
the highest one, is what you say.
Faith is the highest one.
Second one was reminding yourself of where you were, why are you doing it?
Don't forget where you came from.
Okay.
Yep.
And then 3,
being humble.
Yep. And then 3 was grounded.
Being grounded and having confidence in yourself, that you can do this.
Where does that confidence come from?
I think it comes from having faith, honest to
Again,
God.
goes back to
it
that
goes
for you.
back to faith, having.
What was your work schedule like? I guess that would be something around that area. Was the work schedule for the driving, was it a lot of hours into getting to that point? Was it studying? Was it studying the track?
For myself, actually it was. It was constantly thinking about how to be better, and it wasn't work to me. I didn't see it as work. I never felt driving race cars was work. I was so fortunate that what I loved to do, my calling, was they actually paid me money. I mean, I was so fortunate that I could do that 24/7 and so on, and I was just very fortunate in my life, and so I was always thinking about racing. I was always thinking about, how do I make my car better? How do I make my engine run better? How do I drive the track better? How do I relate what the car's doing to my engineer better? How can I, explain to him what's going on and with the engine and whatever obstacles that were thrown at us, because every day there's a different obstacle. One day it could be the fact that the engine's not cooling. Well, how'd that happen? Because yesterday it was cooling. Today it's not cooling. What's that about? Well, get in there and don't worry about the fact that it was yesterday. That was yesterday. Today it's not cooling. So let's get into why is it not cooling, and let's get it fixed, and let's get back out on the track. And so
So the details matters at that level.
absolutely, details are huge,
Unbelievable.
at any level. I would say any level.
I would agree.
I just came from a Penske dinner. He's 50 years in racing, and the words, the Rogers had so many people, partners, people work for him, with him, and they were they were asking these people, in one word, describe Roger, and the one word that just kept popping up was integrity. Integrity kept popping up, and that's what Roger is, and so, I got to thinking about that, and integrity, there's a lot that goes along with that word. Forgiveness. If somebody does you wrong in whatever world, somebody does you wrong, it takes a lot of integrity to forgive that person and to move on. And so he's just, it oozes out of him, is the integrity, and then he got up and started talking, and attention to detail was one of the things that Roger said the other evening, and which is true. I watched this man. He is into everything and wants to know, is very curious, a lot like yourself, Pat, very curious on what makes this way and what makes that way, and why. Okay, and then even to a point where, I watched him walk up to the race car one day, and he's looking at the back end of it, and he goes, we need some heat shielding here, because the exhaust is coming right out on this axle and this suspension piece, and if it gets too hot, it's going to make it weak, and so we need some heat shielding right here, and so that's the way Roger is with anything he does in business. It's attention to detail, and noticing if someone, one of his partners, employees, is having an issue or having a problem, he'll come up and go, "Are you okay? Is there anything on your mind? What would you, what's going on in your life?" and so that he gets that, and you can trust Roger, and so again, integrity. You know, when somebody can trust you, you have integrity, and because that trust is not just given; it's earned.
Well, I can sit here for a couple more hours. I'm
Yeah.
literally fascinated. I am, but I know you have another event. You have an event to go to then with the 1,500 or so at our awards, and I appreciate you doing that with Tom.
Yeah,
That's
of
going to be
course.
fun. But thank you so much for taking the time to just come to the suite here and have a good
bet.
chat here. And I know a lot of the entrepreneurs that are watching this, you know, there's so many similarities between what you did and what level you got to and where they're at. So again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your time.
You
Definitely.
betcha.
Thank you.